is when I think they.
All right. So if you go to any shiur and you ask the question and the rabbi gives you the answer, but it doesn't satisfy you, right? I mean, like maybe you know more than the rabbi and you question him. Are you telling me that the rabbi's going to change his view? Of course not. I mean, he's going to tell you, "Can you step out, please?" It doesn't matter how many questions you ask. They're not going to practice the halacha any differently, because the truth is there's different ways to keep Jewish law. I mean, there are ambiguous notions. This is why there's different codifications of Jewish law, all codifying the same Mishnah. Some Ashkenazim do things differently that some Sephardim do. Bulgarians do different, I mean, and Syrians. But if you're Ashkenazi and you disagree with the Mishnah Berurah, or like if you're Chabad and you disagree with, I mean, the Tanya, and this is one test that perhaps people should be looking for a new rabbi. If your rabbi never disagrees with his faction, if your rabbi is Chabad and he never says, "You know what, I know Chabad teaches this, but that never made sense to me," right? So I'm going to challenge it. If he's not able to do that, find yourself a new teacher, because it shows that he's not committed to truth. It's not what you claim to believe in, it's what you can defend. Remember that. And I would say that the average rabbi cannot defend what they believe in. And one reason why is because they don't proselytize. Proselytizing gets you to sharpen your arguments. If you're constantly trying to make the case for what you believe and what you practice to people not of your religion, clearly you're going to sound more sophisticated and on point. But if you never speak to people who disagree with you much, then you're going to sound quite ridiculous. Like, why do you cover the challahs? Oh, because the wine gets jealous. Come on, guys. You know, midrashim aside. So this is why people who can't defend what they believe use the word heretic like it's going out of style. Heretic just means that you're doing what's unpopular, not necessarily that you're going against halacha. Because I don't teach anything against halacha. Truth is, I mean, halacha is a little ambiguous sometimes. Meaning, I could say that I'm going like the Rambam, but they'll be like, the Rambam, we don't go like the Rambam. I'm like, who's we? You know? I mean, the Rambam.
Sometimes I feel like those guys are right. The very small sect of Judaism where they just believe in the 5 books. What do you call them?
Karaites. Right. So the reason they can't be right is that their form of Judaism could never guide a nation. And like, granted, modern day Karaites are not like traditional Karaites. Traditional Karaites do have their own tradition. It's called the Seva HaYerusha. And in the old city, like of Yerushalayim, they have a synagogue and they have structure. I'm talking about the modern day Karaites. Modern day Karaites who just walk around with a Chumash under their arm or a Tanakh on their arm, just trying to decipher what Torah means to them. Okay, it could work for you and your family, but you can't run a nation like that. If the Torah doesn't even tell you how to keep Shabbat properly, but at the same time tells you to put people to death for breaking Shabbat, you better believe there has to be consensus on what all this means. And the oral law / the rulings of the Sanhedrin.
But then the book of how to keep Shabbat keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger year after year.
So that's why you have to know your stuff. If you know your stuff in Judaism, no one can push you around.
Like, for example, the electricity thing. You mentioned that, you know, in the 40s or in the 50s.
Orthodox Jews used it. Orthodox Jews used to use electricity to the Chazon Ish.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, it just, there's no end to it.
So that's why you have to know your stuff. This is why rabbis don't come on this channel.
That's the problem, is that they know their stuff too well to the point where they're getting too micro.
No, that's not the issue. It's because they don't want to step on anyone's toes, so they absorb every opinion of every rabbi in the last 500 years.
It gets so ridiculous. I have a religious vendor that comes over to me, and Rabbi Asher, the guy steps with his right foot into the office and has these superstition ideas that I make fun of, yet he's a dead belief, like he believes in these things, and he's out of control with these little things.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch like this. I'm pretty sure it has to be Kabbalistic. That whenever you step into a room, you step in with your right foot, and also when you put your shoe on, you put your like your right shoe on first, and then your left foot.
That's why I'm saying it's out of control when there's the oral Torah, and then you analyze the oral Torah into a million books of everybody's opinion.
All right, so David in the chat wants to know what the Chazon Ish said. So we were talking about briefly electricity on Shabbos, or like if electricity on Shabbos was a malacha. So the first big gadol who popularized the idea that it's usher to use electricity on Shabbos was the Chazon Ish in the 50s in Eretz Yisrael. Before that, Orthodox Jews used electricity because it wasn't, whatever. Sometimes you need a gadol to make things not popular anymore. So that is that. But yeah, that's why you have to know your stuff. I tell people, if you master the Rambam, Mishnah Torah, and the Rambam also adds some stuff also, right? But it's quite minuscule compared to what they do nowadays. You'll know more than 99% of the rabbis out there, and they'll never be able to catch you with like telling you to do this or that when it's not a halacha. As parents, as husbands, we're called to be leaders of our family, and that means spiritual leaders as well. The idea is that when you walk into a synagogue and then the rabbi tells you, oh, well, like you can't get haircuts during the Sefira, or you can't listen to music during the Sefira. Okay, it behooves you to say, like, that's very nice, right? Smile. Like, obviously, don't try that rabbi in front of his kids or whatever, or his congregation, but know for yourself that that's not a halacha. Why? Because it's not in the Mishnah. It's not in the Gemara.
About listening to the voice of a woman as in a song.
Here we go. All right, so now we're getting into it. Kol b'isha erva. So kol b'isha erva, at least how it's brought down by the Rambam, does not mean that you're not allowed to listen